Have you ever owned something that broke down? Just a little too conveniently. Right after the warranty expired. Your phone battery starts dying dramatically in month 13. Your washing machine throws a mysterious error code in year 3. A light bulb goes out with a soft pop in the middle of the night. You call a repairman and he shakes his head. Not worth fixing, he says. Just buy a new one. You probably figured you were unlucky. Or maybe modern products just aren't built to last. You were wrong on both counts. What you experienced wasn't bad luck. It was the result of a conspiracy, carefully engineered over 100 years ago by a group of powerful corporations, designed to kill the products you own before their time. And the story begins with a light bulb that was supposed to die, but never did. In the city of Livermore, California, inside fire station number 6, there is a light bulb worth making a trip to see. It was hand-blown from glass, runs on just 4 watts of power, and was first switched on in the year 1901. And here is the remarkable part. It has never been turned off since. That bulb has been glowing for over 120 years. It survived 2 world wars, the moon landing, the fall of the Soviet Union, and a global pandemic. The fire station eventually set up a live webcam to capture the historic moment it finally burns out. Instead, the bulb has outlasted several of the cameras assigned to watch it. Its existence raises one deeply uncomfortable question. If engineers in 1901 could build a light bulb that lasts 100 years, why does the one you buy at the supermarket today barely make it 2 months? The answer was decided in a back room in Geneva, Switzerland, on the eve of Christmas 1924. After Thomas Edison brought the commercial light bulb to the world in 1879, electrification spread across the globe with astonishing speed. The engineers of that era operated under one simple belief: make the best product you possibly can. There were no quarterly earnings reports breathing down their necks, no consultants telling them to think about repurchase rates, just a pure drive to push technology to its limits. That philosophy produced rare results. In the 1910s, a GE engineer named William Coolidge developed a process for making ductile tungsten filaments, dramatically extending bulb lifespans. By the early 1920s, quality manufacturers could reliably produce bulbs with an average life of 2,500 hours. This should have been a triumphant moment in engineering history. Instead, it sent the executives running the world's biggest lighting companies into a quiet panic. The math was brutally simple. A customer who buys a 2,500-hour bulb comes back for a replacement after more than 2 years. A customer who buys a 1,000-hour bulb comes back in less than a year. The better the product, the less often people buy it. And by 1923, that nightmare had come true. Global light bulb sales had stalled and started declining, because the durable bulbs people already own kept working just fine. A product that never breaks is the most dangerous thing imaginable inside a capitalist system. In December 1924, in the neutral territory of Geneva, a group of well-dressed men sat down to arrange something that was absolutely not neutral for the rest of humanity. Around that table sat the controlling powers of the global lighting industry. Germany's Osram, a company jointly founded by AEG and Siemens. The Netherlands' Philips, Hungary's Tungsram, Britain's Associate Electrical Industries, and General Electric of the United States, participating through a web of holding companies, to sidestep American antitrust law. The organization they founded was called the Phoebus Cartel. Phoebus is another name for Apollo, the Greek god of the sun, the god of light. The name had a dark irony to it. These men, who styled themselves the masters of light, were about to make the world's light more expensive and shorter-lived than it had ever needed to be. The cartel divided the global lighting market like a cake. Osram owned Germany and Central Europe. Philips controlled the Netherlands and its colonies. GE held the Americas. Associated Electrical took the British Empire. Any member caught poaching in another's territory faced collective punishment from the group. Consumers in any given market had no real choice. They were buying from whoever had been assigned their region. You might think making a worse light bulb is easy. Just use cheaper materials, cut corners, and let it fall apart. But that would have been sloppy and obvious. Bulbs that failed randomly and inconsistently would have driven customers to complain, to experiment, to seek alternatives. The cartel didn't want chaos. They wanted precision. They needed every major brand's bulbs across every country to reliably die at statistically the same moment. So they established what they called the 1,000-Hour Life Committee. Their top engineers were given an unusual assignment, not to break a technological limit, but to carefully replicate a result that was worse than what they already knew how to achieve. They studied the physics of the tungsten filament. There is a real trade-off built into bulb design. The hotter the filament burns, the brighter the light, but the faster the tungsten evaporates, and the sooner the bulb fails. Working within this genuine physical relationship, the engineers calculate exactly how to hit a target lifespan of 1,000 hours. They adjusted filament thickness, making the wire thinner and more fragile. They tweaked the gas mixture inside the glass. They even accounted for the different voltages used in different countries and calculated regional correction factors. The goal was to find what they call the golden point of planned failure. It worked. By the 1930s, the average lifespan of light bulbs sold by every major brand had been precisely locked at 1,000 hours, cut down from 2,500 hours, a reduction of 60%. Consumers were now replacing their bulbs 2.5 times more often than they had before. But setting the standard wasn't enough. The cartel also needed to make sure no engineer quietly made a bulb that was too good. They established an independent testing laboratory in Switzerland and introduced a system of fines that still seems surreal to read about today. If a bulb burned out before reaching 1,000 hours, that was a fine. Quality failure. If a bulb was still burning after 1,500 hours, there was an even larger fine. Market disruption. You read that correctly. The cartel built a system that punished companies for making products that were too good. Under threat of substantial financial penalties, no company could afford to let its engineers do their best work. The acceptable zone was precisely calibrated. Not too bad, not too good. Exactly mediocre enough to keep people buying. Of course, none of this was presented to the public as a conspiracy. The companies had a polished explanation ready. Let's say that shorter-lived bulbs actually produce more light per watt. That in the trade-off between efficiency and longevity, they had scientifically chosen the option that was better for consumers. They called it technical progress. There was a sliver of truth in the physics. The trade-off is real, but the 1,000-hour number had nothing to do with consumer welfare. It was calculated backwards from shareholder profit targets. Most people didn't have the engineering background to see through the explanation, using scientific language to dress up a commercial scheme. Scholars later gave this a name, technical cover. It remains standard practice in corporate communication to this day. The Phoebus Cartel came apart in 1939 when Hitler's tanks rolled into Poland, and the commercial ties holding European rivals together snapped under the weight of war. In 1942, the United States Department of Justice filed antitrust charges against GE. The result was a symbolic fine and some partial opening of patents. Not one executive went to prison. The men at the top of the cartel walked comfortably into history, profits intact. But it didn't matter that the organization dissolved. The idea had already taken root. Planned obsolescence, the deliberate engineering of products to fail, had become embedded in the DNA of global manufacturing. In 1954, an American designer named Brooks Stevens introduced the phrase planned obsolescence in a public speech, defining it as instilling in the consumer the desire to own something a little newer, a little better, a little sooner than necessary. But the Phoebus legacy had already corrupted the concept into something darker, not making people want to upgrade, making products break so people have no choice. In 1938, DuPont invented nylon stockings, a product so durable it barely tore at all. Sales exploded at first, then plateaued, because women's stockings simply didn't need replacing. DuPont's solution was to send the product back to the chemistry lab and deliberately weaken the fiber structure. The new stockings tore more easily. Repeat purchases resumed. The market came back to life. Main inkjet printers contain a small memory chip with a built-in counter. The printer ships from the factory, with a maximum print count already set. When the number is reached, the chip triggers a lockout and displays a message saying the machine has reached the end of its life. The printer is not broken. Its physical components are fine. Anyone can download free software from the internet to reset the counter and resume printing. The tungsten filament has been replaced by a microchip. The Swiss franc fine has been replaced by error code. The spirit is identical. The modern smartphone is perhaps where this art form has reached its highest expression. The battery is sealed inside the body, not because it has to be, but because replacing it costs nearly as much as a new phone. In 2017, Apple faced lawsuits across multiple countries after it was revealed that iOS updates had been quietly throttling the performance of older devices. The company eventually paid $500 million in settlements. Software updates gradually stopped supporting older models, making them functionally obsolete even when the hardware still works. Official replacement parts are priced at the precise point where buying new feels like the smarter decision. There are layers of engineering stacked together, designed to lock your replacement cycle at 2 to 3 years. American car manufacturers in the 1950s realized their real competition wasn't other new cars. It was the 5-year-old car, sitting in the customer's own garage that still ran perfectly well. Their solution was to use thinner steel in specific structural areas and skip rust-proofing treatments in hidden locations, so the car would begin corroding after 5 to 7 years, in a way that felt both natural and inevitable. Multiple former automotive engineers have since confirmed this in interviews. The story doesn't end there though. The European Union passed regulations in 2021, requiring manufacturers to provide spare parts for home appliances for at least 10 years after a product goes on sale. This was a landmark victory for the right to repair movement. Several American states have passed similar laws, requiring companies to open up repair manuals and tools to independent shops and individual owners. Apple and Samsung, under combined pressure from legislation and public opinion, have launched self-repair programs that allow customers to buy official parts and service their own devices. LED lighting technology has, in a quiet way, disrupted the old cycle. A quality LED bulb can last 50,000 hours, a lifespan so long that bulb manufacturers can no longer compete on failure rates. They have to compete on design and smart features instead. But new battlegrounds have opened. Subscription services, cloud login, annual software updates calibrate with exquisite precision to make you feel that upgrading is necessary, without ever making the new version quite good enough to fully satisfy. The spirit of Phoebus has never truly disappeared. It has simply moved into a more sophisticated shell. Let's go back to that fire station in Livermore, California. That bulb from 1901 is still on. There is no magic to it. It was simply never touched by the men who met in Geneva in 1924. It was never run through the calculations of the 1,000-hour life committee. It's just a bulb, built by engineers who believed in making things as good as they could possibly be made, quietly glowing in a fire station, offering the gentlest and most devastating critique imaginable of an entire century of planned obsolescence. The next time something you own breaks down right after the warranty runs out. The next time a repairman tells you it's cheaper to just buy something new. Remember, that didn't happen by accident. Someone sat down and calculated it. Things didn't have to be this way. They were chosen to be. If this story made you think, hit subscribe and leave a like. It genuinely helps. And if you have a story you'd like me to cover next, drop it in the comments. The next episode might just be yours.